YouTube. What is going on YouTube? All right, so this is our first video at our new place. Matter HQ has moved. We have a view of Brisbane now, so go us. All right, so we're gonna do something a little bit different today. So we're gonna be starting off at the pad, at the house, just getting ready, going through how to do pre-day, pre-training nutrition, pre-workout, all that jazz. We're gonna go to the training session. So we spent the last 3 days moving. I've had about 5 hours sleep in like 2 days. So legs will probably taper back a little bit, just with a new training block. We've got some exercise modifications to leg day, and just the risk of injury, I'll probably taper back load a little bit, be a bit more controlled, a bit more reserved, just to make sure there's no injuries or flare-ups until sleep gets back to normal. But yeah, so pretty much we'll take you around, show the place, and you know, our new fancy coffee machine. Yeah, we'll go from there. We'll try and get some questions, try and get some answers, try and get some education there as usual. And we shall start with oats and protein. Also really easy if you need to get some fruit in. Add some fruit on top. Be about half an hour to digest by the time we actually get to the gym. And then on the way, do a bagel with some jam, peanut butter. And then intra-workout, doing something slightly different now. Instead of waiting till my day across the day to get my electrolytes in, we're gonna start adding in some electrolyte powder to training. So one of the things that people miss a lot during their training workouts is their actual hydration. Now, not just water, but actually balancing their electrolytes and making sure they actually have optimal training potential. So looking at sodium, magnesium, sodium, potassium, calcium, taurine, all things that help make sure that we're maximizing intracellular hydration, training hydration, and making sure that we get the most out of our training sessions. SCAF wants a larger amount of carbs around the training session. I used to train faster when I was on lower food, just because to me it was like easy to do. But instead now we will start implementing some larger chunks of carbs in and around training, making sure that we get the most out of the session. And then I'll probably do something like cardio after the fact. Still maintain 4 to 5 sessions a week, which is why we brought the bike with us. This place is actually really good. It's got a sauna, a hot tub, pool, a gym, and a cardio section. So it's really actually quite handy. When we're next in prep, I can do my own sauna sessions and shit at home without having to travel to and from the gym. Yeah, so easy tip for nutrition as you start getting into like off-season and growth phases. You need to get away from the low value volume options that start to come from like your cutting phase. So as your food starts getting up, what's important is that it comes in. So if you're still having like low volume or lower calorie, larger volume food options, it makes getting your calories in harder. So things like bagels, for instance, one bagel is about 50 grams of carbs. I used to do crumpets. Crumpets were getting tedious to eat. It's like 3 crumpets is about 46 grams of carbs. So in one item that I'm eating, I can cut down the size of the food, the amount of food I need to eat, and improve consumption of carbohydrates. And it just means it digests easier as well. Lower stomach volume, easier to digest and move. So I'll do that. And so you just start making those subtle changes as the off-season progresses and food gets higher and higher. All right, so let's get our pre-workout. So Inspired BBD, because this shit goes hard. Creatine, because everyone needs to be on creatine every single day of their life. 10 grams a day, don't be a pussy. It's the only white powder you're legally allowed to say you can take on camera. Now this is a big one for anyone that is competing. N-acetylcysteine is a highly potent antioxidant. Now what we do is quite oxidative and stressful. So if we are trying to protect the liver and protect the kidney, we're trying to protect our systems and our organs, something like NAC is a non-negotiable to all my clients. very quickly, let's talk about fatigue management. So we are definitely feeling flat and run down, even with pre-workouts, supplements, food. The effects of sleep, we know in literature, even acute bouts of sleep loss and sleep deprivation have impacts on cognitive ability, motor coordination, motor control, neural stimulus. So the adage that everyone used to preach of sleep when you're dead, and I'll sleep when my enemies are dead, and blah blah, and hustle and grind, whatever else, doesn't really pan out when it comes to performance and training, because you actually see the opposite. Is, in an ideal situation, I'm not getting 5 hours of sleep before I come to train. However, I also can't miss my sessions, given that the move was longer than expected. So what we do is we're going to have to taper load, make sure we prime properly, make sure we warm up effectively, to make sure we get the most out of the session. But I'm still going to have to pull back a minute, probably the rest of the week or a couple of days, pull back just a little bit to make sure that I'm adequately allowing recovery and not risking injury. Because it's better to take that step back for a minute and not hurt yourself for 2, 3, 4, 6 weeks, than obviously the opposite, which will be to hurt yourself. So that's kind of how we're going to approach today's training. Take a bit of a step back, make sure we're warmed up, and get into it next week. Now, just to be also clear, is my level of taking it back is still very much above what everyone else thinks is taking it back. So I'm aware of that. That's my already established understanding of failure as a skill and where intensity metrics are. So when I say take it back a notch, we're training smarter, but it's not to say we're completely avoiding any intensity, which some people can try and misinterpret, as they do with most of the failure literature. All right, so you're going to notice me also probably stretching and mobilizing the hip flexors a fair bit today. One of the things that has kind of come up from doing a lot more seated work, so like obviously working in an office, versus what I used to do, which was stand all day. A lot of time has gone into shortening my hip flexors and shortening my quads. So it's starting to cause a bit of compensation in my abductors, in my hip flexor, my rec fem. So we're going to be lengthening that out, trying to stretch that out and loosen that up as much as possible. Yeah, so something that I also don't really talk about, I don't like, I do my best to pretend it doesn't exist or act as if it doesn't exist. So I don't like limiting beliefs, is my spine actually does have a genuine chronic impairment diagnosis. So I had that when I was 21, I had my car accident, had that when I was 25, got the diagnosis, basically like this will be for life. And one of the things that happens, and it's a fault of my own that I think other people would just like maybe get away with because it's such a minor thing, is so 2 weeks ago we brought this movement in, Smith squats, is I got comfortable under the load and I got really excited with my strength. And I'd found that the weight I did my first week was quite light. And so I made a progressive jump the following week to try and match my intensity of what was like closer proximity to failure. But one of the things that we have to consider with me and my program and my progression metrics is that where everyone else sort of thinks of joint failure, muscular failure, we also have to think of me for spinal failure. So in a lack of technical sense. So for me, with a stable but unstable movement like the Smith squat versus a hack squat or a pendulum, is my back didn't have stability to brace against. And so when I was bracing my core, I had basically let it go for like the simplest of second. And what had happened was because of the way my hips are shifted and elevated, to compensate, I've braced and then let go, and load has shifted and pushed. And basically what happens is my disc compresses and my hip shifts out. Basically like I push my hip out. And I end up with extremely exacerbated acute sciatic nerve pain, as that's where the damage is down my L5, L3, 4, L4, 5, S1. And so we end up with basically 3 to 5 days of a level of pain and an excruciating pain, where basically I'm immobile and lack of mobility, lack of movement, even to the point where going to the bathroom and trying to pass waste actually hurts. Like I can't use the bathroom properly, I can't move properly, I can't stand around. So there's these things where 99% of the time I try to just act as if it doesn't exist. And then there's that slight reminder every now and then when I will introduce a new movement, forget to brace slightly. And the simplest of cue that most people will probably get away with, if I'm not cautious or I get lazy or sloppy or don't pay attention, ends up costing me weeks of progression and training. So it's something that I try to work on as much as possible, make sure I'm not doing, make sure I spend my time priming, warming up, make sure my body's ready, is that I don't want to go through those experiences because they fucking hurt. And I know that I end up in a very acute bout of, not depression, but very low self-loathing, disappointment, frustration, angst. So, where it kind of reiterates to me to inform most people to actually take their time, make sure they get their body ready before they train, because it can go away very quickly and you can lose it all very quickly. And I can say from certain experience that you don't want to go through the pain that I go through when it does go wrong. So I always encourage everyone to make sure that you take the time to get ready to train just as hard as you actually train. Put that effort in and don't rush it. So anytime I have a client that tells me something's niggled or something's hurt while they're lifting, I'll ask them how their priming phase went, how their mobility warm-ups, activation went, and usually they've rushed something. So movements, execution, activation, priming, take your time and don't rush your training. Give yourself permission to be here and actually put the effort into being ready just as much as you put the effort into your actual training. For those that don't know or haven't seen anything, or there's stuff that I forget, followers grow and viewers grow, or people that I just don't know that might watch something, is so when I was 21, I'd already had a bulging L3, 4, 5. I was in a motor vehicle accident on the way to work, as I used to be a formwork labourer, a formwork carpenter. And so a very labour intensive job, very construction heavy job. And I was on the way to work, and basically, I'll just kind of go through this because I've had a few people ask, and I thought I'd actually talked about it previously, so maybe I haven't. And I was at a traffic light crossing over the motorway on the way to work, and I was at the red light, first one off the green light, I was first at the line, and basically some SOB, old bloke, nice brand new 2012 Mercedes in 2012, had decided that he didn't want to wait at the lights. So by his lack of patience, he shot through the orange, what he claimed was the orange, when I was on the green light, so it was definitely a red light, at God knows how fast he was going. And pretty much the mechanism of impact was so fast that it had knocked my car into a different lane and pretty much shot, due to like the mechanism like seatbelt and the left side impact, had crushed and forced me to compress my spine on the left side, basically tore my 3, 4, 4, 5, degenerated my T1, sorry, my L3, 4, L4, 5, degenerated my T3, I think it is. So I've got a degeneration of my T-spine as well, and ended up with chronic aggravated sciatic nerve pain. And then after 4 years of treatments, therapies, and specialists, between 21 and 25, I've seen 21 doctors and specialists. I was told that I have a 7 to 10% impairment of my lumbar spine, and that'll basically be that for the rest of my life. So that was something that kind of like took a lot of things. Obviously, it took away my training, took away my livelihood, my work, my career, my sport. So I'd stopped playing rugby league after that instantly. So when I talk about pain management, load management, it's from a very, very severe place of experience, because I know what can happen if you aren't, even if you are careful and you're doing nothing wrong. So when it does go wrong for me, the level of pain is so severe that I literally, there's points in time where the pain kind of stops me from trying to move. So I'll have to actually talk myself through like spinal extension and standing up. And it sounds like these really nonchalant ideas and like they're not big deals, but at 30, there shouldn't need to be a communication between your spine and your brain saying stand up and extend. Usually your body will just do it. You'll just stand and go on about your day. The pain will seize up and cause my spine to lock. And I have to actually like kind of grind through extending and stretching out my spine. So when I talk about those things, it's because I know exactly how they feel and how horrible they are and how shit it feels. So I'm always talking from not just textbook or research knowledge, but also anecdotal experience that these things fucking suck. And if I can help people mitigate that, I will. Professional, amateur. Professional, amateur. It's a weird degree of, I guess, for me, one of the debates that I have internally quite often, and one of the debates I had very early on after my court settlements and debates with doctors, was that pain was permanent and pain was going to be something that I'll experience forever. And so the decision for me was, is the pain something that I'm going to endure forever and do nothing with it? Or is it something that I endure and try to get better with? And so if you weigh it up, if I'm going to be in pain regardless, wouldn't the logic be to be in pain doing something I love and try and progress the things that I do enjoy, that I still have the capacity to do before it's taken? Because we all know that everything that we get to do in life is eventually going to stop and have to be taken away from us. My sporting career is an evident example of that. If that be the case, then to me, the only rational solution was I endure the pain that is going to be there no matter what, and then choose to do something that I love alongside of it. I can't determine the pain doesn't exist, so I may as well use it to do something that I can enjoy and still do, i.e. training, competing, bodybuilding, physique development, business development. So it's kind of trying to take something that could crush you and turn it into a positive. Last video we did was between states and nationals, which was the NWA, NBA and IFBB national titles. So last time we did a video, we just come back from Melbourne. Oh no, we're heading down to Melbourne. Oh shit, that's wild. Okay, so wrap up. Since we haven't done that, in Melbourne, we ended up walking away with 3 more medals down there. So Aiden, Brooklyn, and Ewan all walked away with a medal. Really happy for all 3 of them. Brooklyn ended up narrowly just missing first place. So, you know, as much as her first initial statement when we had our video here last time was to fit in on stage, we ended up actually walking away with second place in the country. Young Ewan walked away with a 3rd place for juniors and nationals, and Aiden walked away with a 3rd place in his division as well at the national level. And then he went on to the ICN titles to end up with a 5th place in the country. So across 2 different federations, Aiden top 5 in the country in his divisions, which is unreal. Brooklyn and Ewan both finished off the season with a 2nd and 3rd place medal. And then we finished off with Rowan and Jesse. Whilst they didn't place, they both ended up with more improved physiques, which was the goal we took from states, which was, you know, we ticked the boxes we wanted from states, and then just wanted to bring a tighter, harder look for both of them for the national show. So yeah, overall it was a very successful season. I think we walked away with 8 medals in total, which is unreal, and 2 rounds of call outs in the IFBB as well. So we can't really be complaining too much about that. And now we've got Tech coming into season A for NBA, and we'll probably look at a couple other federations as well, make the most of her time being lean. She's quite well and truly on track. All right, let's go to work. But yeah, on that note of successful preps, every one of those athletes that did well, that got the result they're after, had all been with us for at least 12 months, if not longer, maybe some of them in 2 years. So when you're looking at prep, stop looking at prep as the 12 or 16 or 20 weeks before the show. Physique development and physique coaching, physique preparation is an ever growing, enduring process that should be taken with the same respect as any other sport, which is years to develop and hone your craft. So coaching and thinking like, oh, I've trained for a little while by myself, I'm ready to prep, I'll do a 12, 16 week prep and then, get shitty, I didn't get the result I wanted. If you're genuinely passionate about pushing your physique and trying to learn or trying to get better, we're taking people for season B now. That's 12 months away. We're taking people for season A 25. That's March, April, May 2025. That's 18 months away. So and we've talked about this on the Bros of Brains podcast, me and Scaff mapped out how 12 months goes by like that when you're prepping. If prep is 20 weeks, that's 6 months nearly. Then you've got the 4-week pre-preparation phase, which is another month, so 7 months, 6, 7 months. Then you've got the 4-week post-comp phase to get healthy. So if you've just competed, you take that as well. So 4 to 8 weeks there is another 2 months. Then you've got a recomposition phase where you want to get leaner and tighter first so that your body's actually in a prime position to respond to growth, stimulus, new food, more calories without getting too fat. Then you actually might go through a growth block. That's 12 months gone. So we've not done much in that 12-month time if you want to get on stage. So take that perception that a prep can be done in 12, 16 weeks. If you're a novice bodybuilder, I would take that out of your head almost immediately and start reframing how long you think the process to stage actually is, especially if you want to get long-term, long-lasting, enduring results and do well while you're up there. And well is relative to the person, but I don't encourage my athletes to go up there simply to experience prep. I put them up there because I want to put them in the best possible position to get the best possible result for them. So that to us is a long duration of time that has to be accounted for. And I just don't respect the idea that all these people that are earning pro cards, you can match that in 20 weeks. Give it more respect, give yourself more respect and say this deserves more of my time or more of my effort, because it does. Alright, so with our exercise selection order, we've actually changed up. We've changed up the order of execution for hamstrings and our Smith squats. Trying to prime the hamstring posterior chain first and foremost before moving to the quad pace pattern. Shortening the hamstring a little bit, getting that stability, making sure the leg is working, the posterior chain's working. Then we're going to jump into our Smith squat. Try and take some pressure off the lower back. Try and make sure that everything's working first. Because we found that I was getting back inflammation and aggravation with the Smith squat being first. So we're trying this out and seeing how this goes. I matched reps last week with more of a pump than pain. So hoping we've just figured something out that might just be worth keeping in the system. And this is where, again, I'll always give credit to my coaches. Scaff is great. This is where reactive coaching is so important. Like Scaff had his program mapped out for me and he's like, yeah, this is what we're gonna do. A few messages, like we chat obviously every day, he's one of my best mates, that's fine, but also a coach. A few messages, he's like, all right, we're gonna modify this and swap it around. Done. Try this out, see how it goes. We tried it out, it seems to be working, we're gonna keep doing it. People that are like coaching through this system is set and nothing changes, or this is how it has to be, aren't gonna get results long term with their clients because there's no one stop fits all, one size fits all The lack of communication doesn't result in good connection with the client. So, I know my shit, but I still outreach to SCAF to say, hey, this happened, this happened, this happened. What do you want to do? Swap, make that change, see how it goes. That's good coaching, that's reactive coaching, that's on-the-fly coaching. As much as you can systemize a human and systemize a process, you can only systemize so far. And eventually you have to actually be hands-on and change things. Matter Athletica is now in conjunction with the Gym Journal, something that we've been using now for at least 12 months, actually since the start of my prep back in 2022, so nearly 2 years. I'm someone who has like all the data, all the transferable app. I love having everything in a system. However, I don't like to use my phone as much as possible whilst I'm training, just simply try and keep it for music. So once I know my program layout, I put it straight into the book, and then I'll copy it to my system if I need to and put it in my spreadsheets for SCAF to see, or I'll just notify SCAF of my updates. So even our clients now, we're starting to get them to use it if they prefer not having their phone in their hand while they're training. Easy way to track sets, reps, tempo. There's some updates coming out with a brand new book by the end of this year with some changes that they've made to the layout. They want to change some things and tweak some things, so I won't give away everything inside here because it's going to be slightly different. But the ability to track the energy levels you spend on the day, your sleep, notes for yourself and your coach. I use some spare space there to write my RARs just so I know how hard I trained or how far I took it in my set. But the ability to reflect on goal setting, what you want to achieve in the week, all the things that we encourage and push is something that we've aligned with in the book. So having that as a tangible tool whilst you're training is becoming valuable to me. I've got now 18 months worth of trackable data that I can easily reflect back on and find from across prep to even now. We see where things have changed and things have improved. And it's something that I'll continue to do for long into the future. So as much as I've modernized our system, having something that I believe in and actually use, because that's what Matter wants to be about. We want to connect people with things that we believe in and have similar values to us. And that's optimizing training and being very good at the basics. We wouldn't recommend much else. So if you use the code MATTER, all capitals, at checkout, you'll receive a discount and they ship directly to your house. So literally get a journal dropped on your front door and you start tracking your data. Pistol fingers not included, unless you want them to be. So what we're doing here is basically elevating my heels so that I can force more of a greater knee flexion without knee pain. Do get a little bit of like tendinopathy in my patella, my knee. So what we're doing is basically elevating the heel, trying to get a greater degree of knee flexion, get more out of the movement, and keep my back a little bit more elevated. So stop the back from rounding as much as well. So take the pressure off there. It's still pretty tight and tender. I can feel some stiffness pulling from just moving. So we're gonna leave it at that for that. Won't progress weight. Intensity was still there, so pretty happy with that, it's fine. The more so I know that if I go up from here this week, likely risk of injury just goes back up, especially after moving for 3 days, so we'll keep it at that. Leave it there. Wait till I recover next week, properly sleep, properly fed, properly mobile, get some massage and treatment, and then come back and progress, so move on to some leg extensions. Okay, so here's a prime example of what I was talking about with sleep and training. Every other week, in the same order of execution, I hit 15 controlled reps for the stack for 3 sets. On this set alone, I only got 12 reps out, and that was a stupid pump. So, again, literally just living out the things that I tell you all is going to happen. So make sure you sleep. Cool. Gym friends, something I was going to mention today. So I've been on a couple of podcasts recently, and really going to start talking more about psychology in and around performance, in and around coaching, in and around results, lifestyle change. So it's like actually it's getting really exciting to be doing those. I love talking about that stuff. Like everyone knows me to talk about body composition, training, stuff like that, which is fine. But actually getting to talk about the psyche of it all and how these things occur is actually getting fun, and people are starting to invite us on for that. Oh, fuck me. One of the things that people seem to miss is what's called social narrative theory, and what we discuss in Mick Adams' 3-layer model of personality. Inside the 3-layer model of personality, people need to understand there's more to your personality than just, your dispositional trait. So a lot of people define themselves by I'm an extrovert, I'm agreeable, and therefore, people walk all over me, and I should just be given better pay rises because I'm too scared to talk to people. Or I'm this negative emotion in neuroticism. The big 5 are what make up one part of your dispositional traits and personality, sure. Mick Adams describes a 3-layer model that overlaps each other and progresses as we develop in life. The next of which is your agency as a human, your freedom, your right to choose, your free choice, free will. That's where we have things like your values, goals, and goals-based actions towards life. And then the last layer is what's called our social narrative. And I refer to this kind of like your social identity, or identity theory. And one of the things I've found is in people that succeed and people that don't succeed, people that don't get the result, don't get the work done, don't get the achievement they're after, is their identity shifts almost as a prerequisite to the result they're going to get. So you'll always notice someone with a victim mentality, someone with a negative mindset, someone with a negative perspective on the cards they were dealt, will always talk from an identity perspective about who they are and identify with the problem. I see it all the time, people that talk about like their so-called eating disorder, their so-called mental disorder, their so-called psychological problem, their so-called socioeconomic problem. They will identify as that thing. I am a broke such and such. I have an eating disorder in this. I have a debilitating behavior in this, or I have ADHD this. I have this mental neuroticism, or I'm a perfectionist. The negative is always how they define themselves and their identity, but it's also in the context of the delivery and the description.
At the same time, people that are quite successful and well versed and they succeed and achieve the result they want have the same tendency, but it's in a more a positively constructed manner and guides their decision making. So you end up with people describing themselves like, I'm a perfectionist destined to do great things, or I'm this person destined to do this, or I'm, my addictive tendencies lead me to want to overproduce work or over impress people or dominate this person. The same theory is used in the identity they create and the way they describe themselves to the world, and it ends up with two different results. So it kind of ties back to why I really like to try and mention my back pain. Is that when I found I was most depressed, most debilitated, most neurotic, most self-conscious, most insecure, was when I was describing myself as someone who's broken, who's damaged, who's got a chronic disability, who has this ingrained tendency of problems, and like, this is gonna be my life now. That was when I was most fucked. When I flipped that switch, flipped the narrative, flipped the way I talked about myself, yeah, people started looking at me differently. And you started getting the whole like, oh, you've changed and you used to be this and you used to want to do this and now you don't want to do this. Correct, I don't, you're right. That's 100% correct. Change to me, when people are describing you and the new identity you're creating, the one that's gonna get a result, is often going to be associated with negativity by the people who used to benefit from the old version of you, or perhaps felt most comfortable with the old version of you. Changing your identity is one of the best indicators of achievement or success, or getting the result that you're after. So if you find yourself, and this is called challenging the thought. If you find yourself describing yourself with the neurotic or negative problem that you have, challenge yourself to flip it and describe a positive identity of yourself and see if there's a change in the way that your life starts to progress. And also, don't be a bitch. Oh, shit. I'm going to touch on a point that I wrote. So inside the app, Matter HQ, I create a lot of lessons and education for clients to read. Send it through their phone like a small article, like you're scrolling on Instagram or Facebook. And one of the articles I wrote, or the lessons I wrote, was on boundaries. Oh, excuse me, it was on boundaries. Sorry, tired. And basically, one of the things that I really like to reiterate with boundaries is, as you like to tie it back to your social identity, as we start to get towards changing into who we want to be and trying to become this new version or this new person, or just simply changing the story, something you have to be conscious of is the people that you used to surround yourself with, the people that were used to who you used to be, or who you once were, are going to do what they can to attempt to change you back to the person you once were, or the person they're comfortable with you being. Because if we look at it, the act of becoming something more than who you were, surrounded by the group of people that you used to be associated with, is going to directly challenge them and face them with the reality that they're not taking action on the person towards who they're supposed to be. And so what we find is, and what I found this across most of my clients, I found this across myself, is the ones who aren't really friends but more so socially benefit from where you are will encroach on those new ideas or those new horizons that you're working towards and attempt to pull you back, because it's more comfortable for them to pull you back to where you once were than it is to accept that they should be doing more work on becoming who they should be. So we call like, to a degree, you're self-actualizing this new version of yourself. And if you aren't firm with boundaries, the old adage of take an inch, they'll take a mile comes into play. The first few months, the first few weeks, even the first year, you'll start to get kickback, you'll start to get pushed back. You know, you used to come out and drink with us, you used to be cool, you're an asshole, you're too good for us, you think you're better than us. All the adages that come out, the derogatories that come out, the slurs and descriptors that come out, they basically want to guilt you into going backwards because that's where you're most comfortable to them. The ones who succeed in changing who they are and changing their identity and becoming a better version of themselves tend to have quite firm fixed boundaries aligned with their morals, values, and their principles and their priorities. So if this new version that you're trying to be, if this new person you're trying to become has your priorities set, your principles set, your values aligned, and your goals firm, it becomes a lot easier to say no. And eventually what happens is those people who are trying to drag you down stop trying and eventually they phase out. So to me, if they're going to phase out, why not just phase them out sooner? If the person that you are trying to become isn't the type of person that associates with them, then why are you still trying to care or worry about associating with them in the first place? And it's not to say that everyone is dicks and to get rid of them and that, you know, people are bad. It's just that the longer it takes you to make those boundaries firm and dig in those boundaries and establish who you are, the longer it takes you to get where you're trying to get to. And the road to that success and that end destination is already long enough. So why are we putting it off based on the perception of people that aren't going to matter in 5 years' time? To me, that starts to take away from who I'm trying to be and stops. And what I know the grand plan is for Matter and Matter Corp, Matter Institute, Matter Athletica, if I'm allowing these people to take me away from where I'm trying to go, then I'm less able to serve the world that I know that I'm trying to serve, and that doesn't sit well with me. So the concern for one, to me, being someone who I thought maybe perhaps was a friend or perhaps was someone that I used to be around, if that person is going to take away from where I'm trying to get to and not support it and encourage that change, then to me they weren't a friend in the first place and I have no qualms getting rid of them. As cold as that is to people and as sadistic it is and sociopathic some people might say it is, the fact is that when I look at the principal mission that I know that I have and the purpose for what we're doing, I would feel like I am taking away from the world by not being my best version of me and not being able to self-actualize the ambitions and goals that we have based on trying to please one person. To me, that is probably one of the most narcissistic, self-absorbing things I could think of, so why the fuck would I do it? So when it comes to establishing these new directions, these new lifestyles, these new goals, these new identities, ensure that you have boundaries that are fixed and firm based on principles, values, and morals, and start living as if you're the person you're already trying to be, and then decide, would that person I'm trying to become give in to these pushes or these pushbacks or these kickbacks or these comments or these terms or these ideas? If not, then don't do it. And that's how you start to really ingrain and enforce this person you're trying to become, and your boundaries become quite firm and stuck. And you'll find that you're less likely to give in, and eventually those people phase out anyway, so fuck them. So I like to use bodybuilding a lot for analogies in life and discussions of points to talk about. It's quite easy to connect the two. Is think about every time you've told your friend group, and chances are if you're listening to this, you're probably someone who trains or has tried to train or diets, or has tried to drop body fat or recomped or even competed, done something high level. Is every time you've started a phase, tried a new process, tried a new diet, tried a new training program, got a new coach, think about how many of your friends started giving you shit, asked you how long it's going to take you to fail this one, when you're going to come out for a drink next, asked you if, make passing commentary like your chicken and broccoli, or you're allowed to eat anything other than chicken and broccoli, or did you bring your meal prep, or has it got fish and rice? Yeah, you get those comments, and whilst they're not derogatory, they're not like, they're not offensive. When you really internalize and look at them, and when you take in the perspective of the conversation, the reality is it's got nothing to do with the goal that you have, but more so a challenge. If we look at Freudian psychology, you're challenging their internal ego, and ego coping strategies generally result in things like projection, where they're going to externalize and project that insecurity outwards and or challenge you to make themselves feel safer and more secure. They have to be more secure in the life choices that they've made, especially if we get older in life and we start to see like, someone's where we never got to, or someone's done something that we never could. You'll hear all the time, like I'll hear some parents say, well, you don't have kids. And then I'll coach fathers or mothers who go and absolutely crush it and still do their thing. And it's always